Hey, I'm Amadeus, and this is Gay in Rural France, a podcast where I talk about queer life in the countryside, mental health, and everything in between. Let's get into it. Let's jump right in. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. So we're back in the Grand Salon today, and downstairs in my half of a medieval chateau. And maybe you might hear the farmer who has left his tractor running for the whole day, and that is also rural living. Today we have another topic on the podcast, and it is, am I doing this right? So yeah, you might have asked yourself quite a lot of times, am I doing this right? Am I being queer enough? Am I having enough? What does define me? You know, all these things. I think I've had kind of a revelation because I think already in the last podcast, I was wearing nail varnish or nail polish, however you want to call it. And there was the time where sometimes I just do it. Sometimes I feel like it feels cute to do it and I do it, but it's nothing really forced. But then again, sometimes I'm like, am I like queer enough in my fashion choices, or am I limiting myself because I'm living in the countryside and I'm just like scared that people might not accept me when I would wear something a bit more outrageous in quotation marks. I've had those things when I was still living in Düsseldorf. I love like summers, and I do that as well here. I love wearing women's tank tops, you know, those really like with those really tiny straps. I just find them more comfortable than men's tops. So I had a broad selection of women's tops. I just loved wearing them. And I had like a Stella McCartney handbag and everything, and I found it was still very manly. You know, it's how you, and I didn't even like put a gender on it. You know, and I think that's like lots of queer people ask themselves the question, but it's also, am I doing life right? You know, life in general. Always this recurring self-doubt, and I think self-doubt always comes in circles. We talked about it in a certain manner in another video, but I think it's also, you know, if you try to live intentionally like I am trying to do here, is sometimes you still wonder, and sometimes you still ask yourself this question, am I slow enough? You know, am I this enough? Am I that enough? And I think that is, sometimes it can stress you out quite a bit. And life is actually really beautiful, you know, when you cut down to it, but not in like a Pinterest or Instagram way. And I think I did talk about this in the other podcast a few weeks ago, where I said that social media, and I think we've heard it from very many point of views, is quite problematic in that, because also your role as a creator, and I feel the same way when I'm creating for my other channel and also for my website, you are creating this fantasy, you're romanticizing life, and I think that's also what people to a certain extent want, and what they are asking for. It's kind of an escape. Like back then, theater, opera, ballet was an escape for people, you know, to escape just like every day. They saw people that they could relate to, and those were then came movies, then came TV shows, and then came YouTube, Instagram, like all of these places, TikTok, where we could consume on a basis that we can actually choose whether we want to consume or not, you know. It's a bit more flexible than like buying a ticket to go to the theater. Though I still think you should support theater. I'm a theater person, so you better go to your local theater and support them. But yeah, you know, it's I think it's like, as a creator, you invite people to dream with you. And I think as a creator, especially in rural France or in rural areas, or if you're a château creator, you kind of, yeah, you invite people to dream with you because anyway, you're a dreamer. I mean, I am at least. And I got this comment from a subscriber on my other channel a long while ago, actually. And she said that she was living her dream vicariously through my content, and which I found like really, it was a really beautiful comment, and it was I felt very flattered because I mean, there's someone that doesn't know me or that knows me, but I don't know them, and I can actually bring them a step closer to their dream, and I find this really beautiful. But then again, you have to kind of balance, I find personally, beauty and truth a bit, and that's, I think, when doubt comes in and you're like asking yourself the question, am I doing this right? Am I doing like content creation right? Am I doing my life right? Because you're on, or I in that case, am also romanticizing my life a lot. And I think I do tend, since I am a theater person, to romanticize my life, and also then I tend to get lost in this and kind of, question myself too much instead of just like letting go and just being. And I think that the worst part of it all is comparison. And when you start comparing yourself, and that's why social media is such a weird platform, and that's why I took this in front and explaining how it's all about dreaming and creating this almost illusion, or just inviting people to dream. And I think I think the title of that card with the comparison, because I have little notes that help me guide me through my thought process, because otherwise I would just ramble on, is comparison is a thief, but it's also a mirror, you know? And I think what I want to say with that is that it's also, sometimes you need to open up and see others as well, and see others in real, you know, and once you see it in real, you see that we all have problems, and it's not only creators, it's all sorts of people, you know. Once we get to know someone and their life like looks really beautiful from the outside, and we have so many people passing us by every day, and everybody has their own internal universe with their own comparisons and with their own doubts and with their own, like, I think we're all running around with this kind of question, am I doing this right? Am I doing life right? But yeah, I think it's really, really fast, or it's a trap that we think that we are less than somebody else just because we own less, or we have less, or we have less of that, less of a perfect body, less of a, but we then don't really see that with all of this comes always sacrifice, and sometimes we are not willing to take that sacrifice as well. I mean, I'm not willing to take certain sacrifices. I know that I had a six-pack like 3-4 years ago, and I know that I sacrificed a lot for that, and I don't think I am ready to sacrifice that again. But I think, context does bring gratitude, and meeting other people and exchanging and opening up to them, and them opening up to you about like all these life questions that are maybe also a bit philosophical, actually bring context to you. That's what I wanted to say. Context to you and your ideas and your dreams and your life and your questioning. And I think then you see like, oh, actually, yes, they are also like struggling, which is not like, which is, sometimes there's like this weird way of like, oh, I just need to look at someone who's worse off than me and then I'll feel better. I am not saying that. I'm just saying, I think that if we would exchange more like truthfully, then we would actually see that we're all kind of, you know, just navigating life and trying to find our way. And that is absolutely cool. And I think the biggest problem around us, and I don't know how you feel about this, maybe you can leave a comment down below, but I think that capitalism is a big, big driver in all of this, because capitalism puts a value on productivity, on the output. It puts a value on humans. On humans. It's called HR, human resources. I mean, mind-blowing. Who would put a price tag on people and on other animals, on beings, you know? It's just like, it blows my mind every day. And I think that this is a big problem, that we put a lot of value into things instead of like putting true value, you know, monetary value, but instead of putting true value in things, a value that is, I am creating a house that is my home, that is close to my heart. I have people who are yes, they are resources, but emotional resources without draining them. They have incredible knowledge. They are so special, you know. I just wanna be around them and exchange with them on an intellectual or emotional level. And what actually stuck with me with all of this defining and values is from my yoga teacher training, when I did it, that we were told, like, okay, how do you introduce yourself? And most people would introduce themselves, like me, for example. Hi, I'm Amadeus, and I'm a dancer and choreographer. But are you? That's only a part of you, you know? It's like you are not your profession. You work as a dancer and choreographer, but I am so much more. I am a partner. I am a gay man. I am a house owner. I am a person who is very reflective of themselves. I have lots of passions. I have lots of things inside of me, you know. It's like I am so much more than just like this one thing. So I think we should really stop saying I am my profession, because you're not. You're so much more than that. And I think that we're very, very complex beings emotionally, and I think we should not let others define our monetary value in this life. And we are very much conditioned to do so in a capitalist society. Just saying, those are my 5 pence on how capitalism affects us. Oh, and now the military is also going above here. Yeah, we have a military base in Cognac, and it's the biggest Air Force, French Air Force station in France. So, gosh, that was long. I'm sorry. And there was another thing in my yoga teacher training that I thought I'm just gonna share it, because those were the 2 things that really, like, until today, they stick with me, which is kind of like a philosophical approach. I am not a very spiritual person, but I found that these 2 things, the one thing that I told you just about, like I am, but the other thing is this unconditional. And I think that we use this quite a lot. We say, like, I love my kids unconditionally, but the crux is already in what you're saying. So you are already mentioning the condition. The condition is that it's your kids. You don't love all the kids, you know? And that's the thing. I think we are not capable of unconditional anything, because it just doesn't exist. I don't know how you feel. Maybe we can discuss this in the comments, but I found this really an interesting thought. And if I think about it, I do agree on that. I think, yes, the condition is always that you are someone. I don't love my dog unconditionally because it has to be my dog. You know, I am very close to my dog, and her personality, and she is, we're very close and we love one another because we're very close to one another. Physically, because we share the same living quarters. I share food with her. All these things bring us close, but these are all the conditions that apply and that make our love. This I found very, very interesting, and I had this question, and is this tied to our sense of value in society and in relationships? And I think it is somehow that it's always our love, our attention, everything is sort of always kind of conditional, because it always comes with a condition. That's why I think we can't love or do anything unconditionally. It just doesn't exist. But maybe you think otherwise, and I'm open. I'm not saying you have to think that way. Just food for thought, So where do we go from here? I think it's not by trying to solve anything. I think it's just by naming it. And I think it's like philosophy. Philosophy is not necessarily trying to solve. I think it's about naming and about thinking about it and recognizing and seeing that that we are all looking for this, and we're all searching for answers, and we are all kind of questioning ourselves sometimes, like, am I doing this right? But what is right and wrong anyway? I mean, we can even dive deeper into this and be like, okay, right and wrong will be something else for me than for you, and vice versa. So I think what is more important is letting go of the idea of there is a right or wrong. And this is, I think, still, again, tied very much to capitalism, that there is this idea of this is right, this is wrong. Because one has a monetary output and the other one doesn't. But maybe the one that doesn't have a monetary output will make you much happier in the long run, or it will have a less monetary value than the thing that is societal right, but it will develop you in a way that is emotionally much more profound and will actually lead you to much more fulfillment. I find that's worth at least acknowledging, and I think it's about honoring the choices you've made as well, and being like, for me, for example, it's honoring the choices of the calm, the creativity, the queerness, and the slow life, and that it also is changing, and that it changes every day depending on my surroundings, depending on my own feeling, my feeling in my body, it's my perception of the world changes with that as well, and I think that everything is a right path, and I think we're all sort of doing it right, because there is no wrong. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave you with some closing questions for yourself to answer, maybe, or maybe you don't care, or maybe you want to talk about it in the comments down below. So here they are. Do you ever wonder if you're doing this right? Life in general? And what helps you come back to yourself when doubts creep in? So I'd be interested to know, and to share your reflections. I mean, you've been sharing beautiful stories so far in the comments, and I am deeply, deeply thankful for all your support. And if you would like to share the podcast, also rate the podcast if you're listening to it on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you're listening to it. It is such an immense help. And also just leaving the video a like if you're watching the podcast on YouTube. And I think we're closing with one last reminder, which is questioning yourself doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're thinking deeply about the life you're living. And I think that is so, so true. Sending you lots of positive vibes, and I shall see you next week for another episode of the podcast. Until then, it's goodbye and au revoir. Bisous from the southwest of France. Bye, guys.